Okay, thanks. Welcome to the Sanborn Regional School District School Budget Committee for January 15th, 2026. And we have our public hearing tonight. Let's begin with the pledge. And the one.
Right over here.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I know you have lots on your plate every week, and other hearings are happening as well. Let's go down the line and introduce people, starting at this end with Catherine.
Catherine Belucas, Newton representative.
Brenda Filippo, Kingston at large.
Brooks Clark, Kingston rep.
I'm Pam Brown, Kingston, chair of the committee.
Jim Doggett, Newton rep.
Bob Dawson, interim superintendent.
Marie Mundy, business administrator.
Shane Queenie, Kingston.
So we'll go through some slides tonight, and then we'd love to hear. I have a sign-in sheet. Sometimes I can't hear your name, so please sign in if you wouldn't mind. So the first slide is our budget process. And the school board sets goals and determines policies. The school administration prepares a recommended budget. The superintendent presents their recommended budget to the school board and budget committee. The board and the budget committee review the budget, and we ask questions and receive responses to those questions. And then we deliberate. So that is step one. The budget committee's review of the recommended budget from the administration and school board includes a review of the impact of the school's ability to build the district's ability to provide high quality education and maintain facilities. We consider the impact to the taxpayers of Kingston and Newton, and we discuss known future changes to the district, including enrollment trends and any upcoming contract negotiations. After we deliberate, we recommend a proposed budget per RSA 21:1. The purpose of the budget committee is to assist its voters in the prudent appropriation of public funds. And Mr. Clark, you can discuss the next two slides.
Scope of the Sanborn Regional School District budget, funds to support all our students from pre-K through 12th grade, including but not limited to special education programs, classroom supplies, books, technology, and bus transportation. Compensation of employees employed by the district is also considered. The budget committee's review of the recommended budget from the administration and school board includes impact to the school district's ability to provide high quality education and maintain the facilities, impact the taxpayers of Kingston and Newton, and discussion of known future changes to the district, including enrollment trends and any upcoming contract negotiations. After deliberation, the school budget recommends a proposed budget. Am I reading the same thing that you just read?
You did.
Just got that printed twice?
It is possible.
Sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Funds to support the continued use and/or maintenance of the following: use and maintenance of the Bakey Elementary School building and grounds in Kingston, Memorial School in Newton, middle school and high school building and grounds in Kingston, Chase Field in Kingston, as well as leased Swayze Gym in Kingston. Use of Church Street Administrator Building in Kingston, maintenance of old middle school building currently being leased in Newton, as well as technology and associated infrastructure to support the district. Funds to support the school board goals and priorities, including the 5-year strategic plan and capital improvement.
Article 3 is the proposed operating budget and will read as follows. The average cost per pupil for the preceding year as calculated in accordance with RSA 189:75, Roman numeral 1A, is $27,191.73. The ELA proficiency level is 56%, math proficiency 44%, science proficiency 34%. Shall the Sanborn Regional School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant as or as amended by vote at the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $41,028,910. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $42,775,710, the same as last year with certain adjustments required by the previous action of the Sanborn Regional School District or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, Roman numeral 10 and Roman numeral 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. The warrant article does not include appropriations in any other warrant article. And Dr. Doggett will handle the next one.
A comparison of the proposed budget for this year versus last year. Last year, the approved budget was $40,527,559. This year it's $41,028,910. That represents a 1.23 increase over the current budget. When you look and compare the current operating budget to the default that is in that warrant article, the default is $42,775,110, and that represents a 5.5% increase over the current budget. The proposed operating budget is $1,746,800 less than the default budget.
Budget considerations for this cycle were rental revenue derived from the lease of the former middle school, funding for facilities maintenance and improvement projects to support the district's aging infrastructure, changes to staffing due to our declining enrollment, the rising health insurance costs for our staff, and the rising expenses for special education.
And declining enrollment is related to local affordability and particularly with respect to housing. So Mr. Queenie has information on that with our next slide.
So this chart combines both Kingston and Newton's housing affordability, as they're roughly about equal now. In 1990, the median house price was $128,000, where the median household income was $44,000. The required salary to buy the median home was $54,773, only a $10,773 difference. In 2025, the median house price in our area was $575,000. The median household income was $105,000. And the required salary to buy the median home was $189,469, an $84,469 difference. According to the state of New Hampshire, only 15% of New Hampshire households currently earn enough to afford a median-priced home. This drastic trend shows the affordability crisis in our towns for attracting young couples to the area being one cause of the student enrollment decline that we have been experiencing. Next is the enrollment trends. So our district has a total student capacity across all the buildings of 2,131 students. The district reached a peak enrollment in the 2008 to 2009 school year of 1,948 students with a total district utilization of 91%. The current enrollment that Superintendent Dawson has is 1,148. The Department of Education numbers are slightly lower. We've been in discussions on this, but it's negligible, the differences. With the 1,148 student number, that accounts for a total utilization of 53.8%. And with our estimates, we're going to be under 1,000 total students within 3 years. Next, over the past 2 years, that's the changes in the student assessments.
I think, Catherine, were you going to do that slide?
Sure, I can.
I just wanted to mention before we move on, I did speak with Kingston's town planner, Glenn Greenwood, and he said we do have new housing coming in, but it's rather modest. We have one project, which will have 9 single-family homes. And the Sanborn Seminary building and lot will have 5 family structures and 12 apartments coming in. There are other areas of Kingston we're planning to develop, but those are some years off. So go ahead, Catherine.
So the next slide is comparing the state, average state results over the last 3 years to our current district assessment results. As you can see from the charts in ELA and math, we are currently trending above state. Science, we are currently trending below the state average. So, but over the years, you can see all 3 have increased. Most, science has had probably the least increase because we kind of took that little dip and came back. But we are making progress with our students.
Our VA Monday, Marie Monday will discuss estimated allocations.
The estimated allocations for FY 26-27, with the proposed budget being 41,028,910. From the local revenue that we would, estimated revenues that we would receive, 2,884,544 for tuition. Earnings on investments, I don't know if you want me to read them all. Food service sales, other local sources, special ed aid, vocational aid, child nutrition, federal grants, child nutrition for federal programs and disabilities, Medicaid, and the use of fund balance, which totals an estimated revenues of 5,435,662. And you can see on the left, the estimated local revenues are about 13.25% of the allocation. And then we have adequacy grant that we get from the state for 2,662,459. And the estimated state revenue that we receive plus local property taxes would be 32,930,413 for 80.26% of the total allocation.
And before we move on from this slide, I was looking at last year's slide and I noticed that for the property tax, last year, the percentage was 77.3%. Was the amount from property taxes, and now it's 80.26%. On the right side of this slide, you'll see tuition at 2.88 million.
Last year was 3.
Last year, tuition from Fremont was 3.8 million. So as tuition from Fremont declines, the percentage from property taxes has risen.
The tax impact. The estimated tax impacts for the budget article in Newton is roughly 99 cents per thousand, and in Kingston, it's 91 cents per thousand. This represents, and quite honestly, that number needs to be changed because I don't think you can buy a house in Newton for 495 anymore. But it would be a $500 increase in the town of, or $495 increase in the town of Newton, and a $455 increase on an average house in Kingston, assessed at $500,000.
And the next slide just shows the change in our budget over time, percent change compared to the inflation rate over time. Inflation's crept up more quickly than the growth in the budget, but of course, enrollment's been declining at the same time. So this is what you'd expect to see. Oh, Mr. Clark, would you like to handle them?
Sure. Endorsement of proposed operating budget. So support for the proposed operating budget provides efficient use of funds for the needs of all students while minimizing impact of inflation, increased costs for special education, health insurance, transportation, and utilities. Supports the district initiatives for improving academics through implementation of new programs and improving staff salaries and retention. Accounts for student enrollment decline, as well as supports facilities, maintenance, and capital improvements.
And now we come to the calculation of the default budget for New Hampshire's RSA 4031-9B. The default budget is calculated as follows. The same appropriations are contained in the operating budget authorized from the previous year, plus or minus any debt service, contracts, other obligations previously incurred or mandated by law, reduced by one-time expenditures, which we didn't have any, and reduced by salaries or benefits of positions that have been eliminated in the proposed operating budget. So we continue to the next slide. The same appropriations as contained in the operating budget authorized from the previous year. So the Article 3 last year was 40,322,601. And then we add the support staff collective bargaining agreement from last year, which was 178,140. And the administrators collective bargaining agreement was 26,808. The previous year's total was 40,527,559. So if you take that total and then you add this next slide, which the increase in the employment contracts of 1,521,733, which includes health insurance as well as salary and benefits. Special education costs, including out-of-district placement, is 599,260. And then the SST vocational education is an additional 36,649. Our bus transportation contracts are an increase of 72,669. And then our insurance and auditing costs are 17,840,000. So the cost to increase the default budget would be $2,248,151. So the previous year's 40,527,559 plus the 2,248,151 gives us the total default this year for 42,775,710. Jim was going to do the reserves.
Sanborn Regional School District presently has 5 capital reserve funds and a contingency fund that they chose to do. The school board chose to retain under RSA 198:4-B. We have a special education expendable trust fund, which presently contains, as of December 1st, $641,288. The capital improvement fund contains $484,455. The unanticipated educational expenses capital reserve fund contains $290,985. The facilities use revolving fund. This is the fund that, like the rent of the old middle school building goes into, contains $331,251. The unanticipated utility cost expendable trust fund has $197,208, and the amount that the school board chose to retain from previous unexpended fund balance as a contingency fund is $670,271 for a grand total in accessible funds outside of the budget of $2,615,458.
So the remaining slides are non-monetary, and so they wouldn't be something we'd comment on. But we are still waiting for Article 4, which is the Teamsters contract. And
The school administrative contract.
Teamsters, which was.
Sorry.
Up there. We do have that. We can announce that.
oh, you do?
Yep. I can go over that if you want.
That'd be great, sure.
I don't know how many details I can get into
There it
on
is.
that, but we have come to a tentative agreement on the school administrator contract with Teamsters local number 633, I think it is. Yep, 633. And the estimated increases for the 3 years of that contract will be, they're listed here, $48,010, $61,645. Or
Do you speak into the microphone?
Oh, yours is.
I turned mine off because I talked too much outside of that. I apologize for that. I know I'm getting yelled at. That's fair. We have come to an agreement with the teachers, with the school administrators, Teamsters Union 633, on a tentative agreement on their contract. So this is sort of prescribed text in the warrant article, but the impact of that contract will be in the first year, next year, $48,010. The year after that, $61,645. These are estimated, of course. And in the third year, $67,634, with an estimated tax impact of 2 cents per thousand in Kingston and 2 cents per thousand in Newton. And then Article 5 talks about having if that article is defeated, it would give the district the ability to have another meeting and vote and so forth if we were to revise, or if that contract were to be revised, and it would address just the cost items of that contract in a special meeting.
So Articles 6 and 7 will be coming next week.
Yes.
Yeah, I can explain that. The Article 6 and 7 are, I don't want to call them dummies, but they're kind of blanks that are presented here for the information of the folks here and out there in YouTube land. These will be decided by the school board next week at their meeting on Wednesday. And the amounts are left blank because it's up to them to decide what those numbers are, but we wanted to present those. One of the reasons we'll be recessing the meeting tonight is it'll give the budget committee a chance to weigh in on those and their feelings in that and vote whether they're going to recommend those or not at the continuation of this meeting, which will be next Thursday night back here.
So we'd like to hear from the audience now. Please state your name and town, and if you wouldn't mind signing in, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Rick Edelman, Kingston. First and foremost, thanks again for all the hard work. It's appreciated. So a number of questions. Slide 6. I think that's 6, if we can go to that. Article 3. Yep, okay. So this is the first time that I've seen ELA proficiencies listed in this warrant article. And my question is why? And my second question is, do you not feel it prudent to state whether it's an increase or decrease over the prior year?
That's a good question. I think I can handle. This was a law change that was passed over the summer and requires us to list these on the warrant. And this language was, I believe, Marie's going to nod her head or not, that this was language that was school business, whatever. The Department of Revenue Administration actually recommended this particular language. So,
okay. Have we asked them and have we submitted any alternative language to include how this compares to state proficiency, and or whether we can state it's either an increase or decrease over the prior year?
No, this is how the law was dictated and this is how we had to present it.
I heard that the first time it was said. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
My question specifically is, have we asked to change that language?
I can certainly reach out to or Marie and I can reach out to the Department of Revenue Administration to see if that it's allowed to edit or supplement, add language in there.
It doesn't even say it's current. It's very misleading. It doesn't add any value for me, and I don't think it will for the voters.
Yeah, I think if you look up that RSA, you're going to see that it is pretty well dictated exactly the language. That
Okay. Well, I would just like if the question be asked.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, I have a comment on slide 14, just because of the commentary that was added. Slide 14, there was commentary added that you would expect these expenditures to be in line with inflation because of reduced, I don't want to misquote, but I think it was because of the reduced amount of students in the school. And I would just offer that that's not necessarily true. Because inflation doesn't impact students, it impacts costs. It impacts costs of services, it impacts costs of fixing the buildings, electric, gas, all things that were negotiated by this administration, the people that run this school, the teachers, the principals, and I just want to make sure that they get credit for the hard work that they did. Slide 21. The town of Kingston on January 14th posted that there was a resignation of a school board member, and I don't see that listed on this. It's an open position for school board.
Yeah, we just haven't updated that.
Okay.
I updated it on my DRA site.
All right. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you so much.
Just one member from Kingston for 1 year.
Oh, go ahead.
We sign in here.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Aye. Cheryl Gannon from Kingston. First, I want to thank you all for your hard work. I feel your pain. On slide 5, the scope of the SRSD budget. Use of Church Street Administrator Building in Kingston. Do you know what that costs and if there's been any consideration of moving that back to one of the administrative buildings? I mean, it's one of the other buildings, considering the decline of enrollment. I don't know if that's given any
We'd actually
space.
Discuss that, but it would require, I believe, $250,000 in renovations to prepare a space, to move it back. So it's probably in the works, but not this coming year.
Thank you.
And I'm looking up the cost. Maria and I are furiously looking for it right now. I want to say it's $97,000 for next year. And that lease is up on, I believe, June 30th of 2027.
Yes.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, that lease does include heat, electricity, water, snow removal. And those sorts of items are all included in that lease. And there are currently 14 people working in that building full-time.
Thank you.
No problem.
As with Mr. Edelman, I was very surprised to see this slide 6, the operating budget, Article 3, that in addition to the proficiency scores, it gives a cost per pupil.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering that's the current budget that we're in now? That's how that was calculated? It says preceding year, so that's the year we're in right now.
Well, yes, it would be right now.
Okay. So I know I'm wrong.
Actually,
But-
no, it was fiscal 25 because we don't have any numbers yet for the year that we're in.
Right. So my question, I know this question is going to be wrong. I'm just doing crazy math, but I'm wondering if this considers for next year, as we give the proposed budget, where the projection is approximately 55 students less. If I multiply 55 students times 27,191, comes to about $1.5 million. I know that's not how it works, but is there any consideration for, does the decline in enrollment, how does that impact the budget? Putting this in here just begs that question.
Sure, it's a good question. I think I can answer that. If Dr. Brown's okay with that, I keep forgetting. This is kind of their meeting. But as we looked at the budget, we did look at some positional adjustments that we felt were reasonable to make as our enrollment is declining.
Can you elaborate on those? Because I did see that on another slide. It was going to
Sure.
be the question that there was a decline in staffing, but it doesn't say how many or how much money it is. So coming to the budget hearing, I'm looking for how does that impact the budget monetarily, money-wise, numbers?
Sure. The difference between the default and the budget that we're currently working with, and it's not completely final yet, the number that would go on the ballot, is about $1.7 million. It's down by $1.7 million because, as Marie explained with the default budget, that takes the current year's budget and it adds in things that the teacher contract is roughly $500,000. We have about $600,000 in some special ed expenses we know are going to happen. We're anticipating more. So it's looking at different ways we can do that. So those default budget items, then we heard that there was a desire, and the budget committee has put that out there to say, we want to make some adjustments in our positions of what we're doing. At the administrative level, we've talked about how we would want to do that. Ultimately, that decision is one that is made between the school board and the administration at the office. It was something that would have come up and we would have discussed privately because we're talking about people's jobs. So we'd have done a non-public last night. That was the plan, to talk about specific positions and potentially teachers and educators in our district who may be not returning next year. And so it's not something we really want to talk too much about publicly until we have that final plan, not a final plan, but our conversation about what we think is going to happen if the budget passes as it does. And at that point, we will elaborate based on what my guidance that I received from the board on how much we can talk about what that is. One thing we definitely want to respect are the people that are deeply affected by this. And we want to make sure that we have a conversation with those people prior to anything really becoming public. Because
Well, I certainly wasn't asking for
understood.
exact positions or
Gotcha.
anything like
Yep.
that. But on slide 8, where it says budget considerations were changes in staffing.
Yes.
So, but you don't have a solid number for how many, or an estimate of how much staffing change you're anticipating, or what a cost might be?
Yeah.
Because that's the basis of the budget,
Mhm.
seems.
The significant majority, a lot of the $1.7 million is in positional adjustments. And that would be impacted by resignations, retirements, teachers that may be heading to other districts and so forth. And so when we have taken a strong look at what we project for some of those things, and we believe we have a solid plan to cover that, largely through readjusting where people go and some people naturally, as the flow of a school year does, leaving our district at the end of the year.
And where's that 1.7 million figure coming from?
90-something% of that is going to be in salary and benefits.
Was that on the budget presentation?
Yes. Well,
Slide
it-
7.
Was that in the default, on the default slide?
The default would include everybody we have now, kind of flipped into next year. We did find I think the default is impacted by some, I don't want to say errors, but some things that we had to correct from the prior year's budget.
Sorry, this,
no, slide 7 shows the comparison between the proposed operating and the default. It's just on the bottom, it shows the difference.
yeah, but
Points.
when, in the detail of the default,
No.
what page was that on? Sorry, these are not stapled and I'm kind of lost track here.
There is no detail of the 1.7.
Calculation of a default. Here it is, 18. The calculation of the default?
That's how we come up with the default.
So are all of those included also in the operating budget? The transportation contract, that's in the operating budget, right?
Mhm.
And the SST
Mhm.
and the special ed and obviously the contracts are in the operating budget. So again, I'm looking for your expertise. So it might be a dumb question, but how is it that the default budget is so much higher than the operating budget? Because typically in the past few years, it's been almost the same, like maybe a couple $20,000, something like this. But this is such a significant
Sure.
difference.
Yeah, the way I would look at it is this way. So we take this year's budget, we add the items that we have,
With the current.
this stuff, that becomes default with the current people that we have right now. And then I listen to the board, or we listen to the board into it. We proposed a budget and then the budget committee did their, work, and said the number's going to be $1.7 million less than the default. And then we go in and we say, okay, how are we going to make that money up? Are we going to cut? I'm trying to think of something we would never cut, but you say we're going to do that, or we're going to do this, we're going to adjust positions and so forth. So
The
it's-
1.7 is the difference between the default and the operating budget.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Other budget considerations, funding for, this is slide 8, funding for facilities maintenance and improvement projects to support district aging infrastructure. Is that funded within the operating budget? And do you have any details on, again, what you're anticipating that is going to cost? I believe I was watching one of the tapes of one of the meetings that there's something coming up. Is it a roof or some big thing that's coming up?
I could let you know the current year's facilities budget is $433,005. And the proposed for this coming year will be another $250,000, so $686,042.
And that you anticipate will cover the needed expenses? Or are you thinking some of that's going to have to come out of the reserve, one of the reserve accounts?
Well, we have aging facilities, so we just want to make sure we have sufficient funds for repairs coming up.
Right. But the reserve account isn't considered when things are coming up. You're not going to dip into that, right? Into the reserve account. That's only if something unanticipated comes up, or am I not correct in that?
Like a rainy day fund.
Yeah, the reserve funds are more like a rainy day, something you don't anticipate happening. What we've tried to do in this budget is to put additional funds in our facilities and maintenance to allow them to better maintain. We were also running into some expenses like the recertification of our AED machines was not in the budget every year, the inspection, and some of the inspections of things that we want to do to also maintain all those pieces that we have. So by providing additional funding to the facilities and maintenance guys in the current budget right now, we hope to be able to extend the life of some of the, I don't know what the right construction term is. The things that we have in the building that we want to keep going so we don't have maintenance issues that are bigger ticket items later on.
Yes, thank you.
No
That's
problem.
very wise. So I am going to go to the reserve funds, slide 20. These are the current balances in these funds. Do we know how much has been, if anything, spent from these funds in the last year? Or is this just basically, this has been holding and we're adding each year if we happen to have a warrant article and we put some more money in? Has anything been spent from these funds?
They are used over time, yes.
The original The original middle school water purification system was going to come out of these funds, but then at the end of the year, we transferred it because we had an extra use of fund balance. To my knowledge, I don't know of any of, over the past 2 to 3 years, we've not spent any of these funds. We've accrued interest and we've put money into them, but we haven't spent. Okay.
Finance committee has all used funds, not actually use the reserves.
I'm sorry, we use the facility revolving, but not any of the trust funds. Sorry. You and I were, yes. We've used a facility revolving fund, which we get the rental income from the middle school, and that goes into the facility revolving. And we have spent money on that. Yes, you're absolutely correct. Sorry.
And that's meant
I
to
would
do
think of
that.
trust funds, yes.
That's not a reserve fund.
And that's the purpose of the facility use
Right.
revolving fund, is to maintain and fix the schools.
So is that pretty much a wash, what we get from the lease? And what they pay for us, I don't know, is additional monies in the revolving fund, does that pretty much take care of that building? Or are we spending additional monies to maintain that building or do snow plowing and?
It's used to maintain all of the buildings, not just the old middle school.
Okay.
We get the rental from the middle school. They actually maintain the buildings for us, but we get the rental income from it.
And that rent, so the rental income we get takes care of everything. We're not putting any additional funds into that building.
Correct.
Thank you. Can you explain, I ask this every year, it'd be great if you could add, what does the contingency fund, that's the biggest amount there, what kinds of things does that cover?
That again is an emergency fund. If the budget, we don't have enough money in the budget, then we can tap into their contingency fund.
For,
That amount goes away every year, and then we have to revote to take 2.5% of the budget.
but you wouldn't take special ed costs from that. That would come from the special ed account? That wouldn't come out of the contingency
I
fund.
think you can take a special ed from.
And the capital improvement, again, if you need something for
You have to
New
a
territory.
roof that fell in, that wouldn't come out of contingency fund. So what kinds of
We've never
events,
used the
expenses would you,
Again, we've never used a contingency fund. It's there, we reserve it just in case, but we've not used it. So then every year we vote to approve 2.5% of the budget. So last year it was 650. That went back to the taxpayers, and this year we voted to take another 670.
seems to me there should be some written down. What would we use this fund for? It's the largest, $670,000.
If we don't have
Can-
enough money in the budget, that's when we would tap it.
For anything?
Yes.
So anything in the budget, if it overruns,
That's
that,
my understanding, yes, but I can look into that for you.
thank you.
I know it could be used for special ed, for example.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, Cheryl, the contingency fund can be used for anything
Mhm.
that is unanticipated.
Mhm.
You can't use it for something that was in the budget, maybe
Correct.
got cut from the budget, and you still want to do it. You can't go to the contingency fund. That's for, you have the special ed child that moves into school district with a very expensive placement that
And you
you did
used
not
up that
budget for.
expendable fund that's meant for special ed, then you could dip into the contingency fund.
Correct.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you have a septic system that fails,
Mhm.
you can actually use the contingency fund.
Okay.
Anything that was not anticipated,
Or that goes over
That
one
fits
that's
into-
got these specific categories, like unanticipated education expenses. If you used up that 290,000 and you still had more expenses, educational expenses, you could then go into the contingency fund?
Correct.
Mhm.
that's a question for the school board, because quite honestly, you could debate that in front of the Department of Revenue Administration, whether or not the contingency fund has to be used first before you capital reserve funds or vice versa.
Oh, could you say that to the mic? Is somebody else up there, what he just said?
I can only repeat that
Yes.
person who's been doing this for a while in the audience mentioned that there needs to be a public hearing before we spend that money.
Okay. So my next question on this is, do these funds have any cap? Like, what is your goal? If special ed gets to $1 million, are you going to say that that's what we're aiming for? And we're not going to put any more money in that for any or all of these? Do you have specific caps? Or are we just going to keep putting money into these funds? We're not spending any money out of them, but we're still putting money in them every year. Or usually you'll do 2 a year, put a warrant article on maybe 2 of these funds, and then the next year you might rotate with the other 2 funds. So it's not every year that we're adding money, but just wondering, what's the goal on these funds? When will we stop putting money in them? Or do we have a goal?
I don't think that's not my question to answer. That's a question for the board and the budget committee.
It's a school board, yeah.
Well, just for example, there's a warrant article for I'm sorry, I can't, I'm not hearing you very well. Can I just find that so I can? What slide is that? That has the warrant articles.
Shane, that's probably 26. I can't see what you're doing behind.
Capital Reserve, Article
Yep.
6, number 6.
Mhm.
So it says raise and appropriate up to 520,000. Where's that number come from?
That's, okay.
You can have this one in after I do this.
Yeah, this is a placeholder slide. I can tell you that when I changed the number to XXX000, I forgot, I didn't notice that I had written out the number that I had in there originally.
Okay.
And what I did was just,
Thought that was the cap. 'Cause
no.
2, but then you were going to put a real amount in.
No, that was the guy writing the warrant articles who forgot to take it out. That'd be me. And what I did with both of these funds is I just rounded them up to $1 million, which has nothing to do with reality. It was just the number I chose when I was sitting there doing them. So they're X, and that's something that the board has on their agenda to talk about next Wednesday night.
Okay. And what do they consider in coming to that figure, that amount?
I'm sorry, what was that again?
How do they come to amount? 100,000, 200,000? People just throw out numbers and vote on it, or what's the rationale for how you choose that number?
Yeah, they won't just throw a number out. I can tell you that they're very deliberative about that, and I think that there's been a lot of debate about that in the last couple of board and budget committee meetings about how much is the right amount in there, and I think that's really a decision that the board has to make. That's not a decision that.
That's not the
Because
budget.
it's the warrant article item that they put on the ballot, in effect, that's a decision they have to make.
But the capital improvement plan doesn't relate to the reserve fund. This is just in case you don't have enough money.
No, but
I will do that. The Article 4 contract, it says school administrators, and then there was a previous slide that had school administrators contract. 17. Administrative collective bargaining agreement, 26,000 is,
The a year ago, there was a 1-year agreement reached with the school principals and assistant principals and so forth. That same group had a 1-year contract. So that was last year's adjustment. And then we've come to a tentative agreement on a 3-year contract.
Looking for a 3-year, okay. And these numbers are right. These aren't placeholder numbers.
They're estimated,
They're estimated.
correct?
Oh,
Because
okay.
you don't know, if somebody leaves the district or they take
Oh,
a different
yeah, but,
plan or things like that, those would be.
okay, but the agreement has been reached. I see that.
Yep.
Okay. Can I come back if somebody else, I don't want
You can email me as many questions as
to, because I had some other notes, but they're probably all mixed up in here. I'll let somebody else have a turn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Dan Guide, Town of Newton. Second. Cheryl, to answer some of your questions, I kind of know some of these things, right? The special ed, I was last year. The special education fund, if I'm not mistaken, Bob, you can correct me, but the previous superintendent wanted $1 million in that fund. I think that was his goal. Pam, am I right?
Yeah,
It
million.
was $1 million is what he wanted.
Mhm.
Whether this board or not wants that, or the current or the interim superintendent, I don't know, but that was their goal. The capital improvement fund, that's how they are able to do capital improvements. So when that fund builds up, say it is $1 million, they'll start to plan to start knocking some of those things off of the capital improvement plan. So it's not stuff that's in the budget. This is above and beyond stuff. That's what that is.
Anticipate.
Exactly.
Okay.
No, capital improvement plan directly ties to the capital improvement reserve fund. And I think you guys don't have enough in there to start doing it. Right, but that's not enough in there to start
Exactly.
working on it. Anyways, I have a couple questions. If you want to go to slide 12. Can someone explain how use of fund balance is in revenues?
That's the contingency.
I know you plan on using it.
No, but they set it aside, so it's always there and available.
But you're taking it off of the amount that's appropriated.
It's an estimated revenue.
Okay. I haven't seen a contingency fund listed as revenue. My other question is, I guess, so Bob, you touched on it. If this is the budget that passes at 40, whatever it is, 41 mil, you guys are going to come up with positions that you have to eliminate. So that's going to change the default, right?
No, the default.
Why wouldn't it change the default? If your positions are eliminated in the operating current proposed, it comes out of the default budget as well. It's right in the RSA on that slide.
That's from prior year eliminated positions, not this current.
It says proposed. It doesn't say prior.
No, but the default wouldn't change if we're cutting positions for next year.
Right. So
If
if
we cut positions last year, they're not in default for next year.
the wording isn't right because it says proposed, you're not talking about a proposed budget from the next year.
It was last year's proposed budget is the.
Well, it doesn't say last year is what I'm saying.
Oh, sorry.
So what I'm saying is if the way it's worded right now is if the proposed operating budget has position cuts in it, then the default budget should also reflect that because that's the way the RSA is written.
Actually, if you go to slide 17, it's the March 25 vote. That was this current year's budget. And we start with this current year's budget to get to next year's default.
You put 17 up there.
That's what was voted on in March of 25.
Yeah, no, put the RSA up there. Sorry. Uh, 16. Yeah, that last line is this straight from the RSA, from the law?
The reduction of the salaries and benefits that had been eliminated from the prior year proposed, maybe that's just a bad wording.
Does it, are you reading from the law right now?
Sorry,
Are you reading from the RSA right now?
I'm reading from this slide.
Because is this slide the RSA? That's, I guess, my question.
I don't know, because this slide was reused from last year. And I wasn't here then.
On slide 16? Is that what you're reading, is slide 16?
Yes,
Okay, so you don't know if this is the actual RSA or not?
I don't know.
Okay. That's fine. That's all I have now.
Mhm.
Hi there. James Hasselbeck, Kingston. Hold on, let me sign in. Thank you for this. This is difficult and complicated. Kingston resident. I'm going to try and go in slide order. So slide 12. I'm a big supporter of appropriate context, and I think it's really important for all of this information, so everybody has the right information to make good decisions on behalf of our town, which I know that everybody in this room wants to do. So I acknowledge that. Bottom line item, 80%, 32.9 million. That's the biggest percentage. I'm wondering if there's a rough approximation of state versus local property tax revenue.
Yes, hold on.
I'm interested in sphere of control stuff. So what can Kingston and Newton residents, be aware of versus state stuff, which is a different group?
So the estimated state portion. So the adequacy, I don't have the other one. So the adequacy portion was 2.6, and the estimated state portion of that 32 million is 2,568,017 dollars. So if you take the 2.5 minus the 32, that would be the rest would be in property tax.
Plus or minus 30 million at the
Mhm.
local control.
Yeah.
That's super useful. Thank you.
Yep.
Slide 14. I think this is wildly misleading. When I look at this, I see actually really excellent fiscal management by the board and the district in keeping appropriations change well below inflation rates. And from my perspective, that should be celebrated. That said, I do understand we've seen enrollment decline in these same time periods, but that's an easily correctable assumption. So I'm wondering if we corrected or prorated the inflation and appropriations percentage as tied to student enrollment, which Ms. Brown, you highlighted as what you would expect to see here. My quick math says the decline in student enrollment period in the same period is nowhere near the differentiation between the inflation budgets. And I'd be curious on your perspective.
We calculated per pupil spending over time and times the inflation rate over time. And if we just look per pupil spending and increased it for inflation alone, our budget right now should be at 38 million.
That was not my question, though.
I know.
So my question very specifically and very clearly was, if we corrected this table to accommodate inflation as opposed to just using the wildly simplistic per student average, what would this table look like?
Well, I'm not happy with this table. It's looking at the total appropriation rather than per pupil spending, which I think is the more relevant number to look at.
Once again, that's not my question. I'm not happy with this table either. So now there's two of us. So let's change it.
Right.
Right. So again, my question is, if we correct the appropriation change to actually reflect the district enrollment, what does this number look like? Because that's what's actually important for our voters. And if this is not possible live, that's fine. But I think that this is critical information that Kingston and Newton residents need to know, because some of these costs are outside of our control, and we need to focus on the costs which are in our control. That's my overall goal here. I want to cut these costs, but I don't want to chase things that are outside of our voters' control.
If I may, there is one thing that when you look at anything that lists per pupil costs for districts, that is calculated by the state using a very antiquated formula. It does not include many things that are now regular parts of every district budget. And if you actually, there's been a major argument in Concord. Some of us support it, some people wouldn't support it. And that is that you take the bottom line of the budget, divide it by your student population, and you have the average cost per pupil. Yes, there are special ed pupils that cost a lot more, but that gives you a baseline for an average cost per pupil.
I understand that, and that's outside of this table. What I think is very important, there was a comment made by the budget committee that I inferred to be that this table is not relevant because we've seen a decline in student enrollment, which is justifiable to explain a nearly 10% decrease in actual budget increases as compared to inflation. And I think that that's misleading. I think we need to be looking at inflation costs separately from costs that we can control. And that is totally not related, right, to individual student count, which is important for other decisions we make, but not here. And this is a victorious story to me, right? This tells me that our school district, our school board, and our school administrators have managed a budget that is meaningfully lower, 10% lower than inflation in the same time period. And if that's not the story we need to tell to our voters, I'd like to quantify it with easily available data, which we have in student enrollment for the same time period, which is in the past. So this is a knowable thing. I understand if it's difficult to do right now, but I think that that's an important perspective to offer if we're going to make the claim that this is what we would expect to see, this differentiation, 10%. It's $4.2 million. That is a not insignificant amount of money, right? And if we're going to make the claim that this is not relevant directly because of student enrollment, I would like to see that corrected to reflect per capita. Is that a fair? Is that fair?
Yeah.
All right. Slide 20. This is more just a commentary. Overall, this is a roughly 6% contingency budget as opposed to the overall budget. So while these numbers look large, and they are, these numbers need to be considered in proportion to the overall operating budget. And my comment or statement is a 6% overall contingency to your annual operating budget is on the low side of things, especially considering the conditions we live in. We cannot allow ourselves to be like Claremont. So I just want to support, 6% to me feels like a very reasonable, if not low, contingency percentage. And it's really important. Again, my comment at the beginning was context is so critical here. Numbers are huge, but percentages tell stories which give accuracy and can help people make good decisions. So 6 to 8 maybe 9 to 10% is the ceiling. There were some good questions on caps. Contingencies can't go on endlessly, but 6% is low, 10% is medium to high, and I think this is fine. I'm a little out of order. I'm sorry, back to slide 6. Again, I feel like this warrant article language is misleading. RSA 189.75 talks exclusively about the methodology for calculating per student expenses. Is that accurate?
I don't know the RSA off the top of my head. I just know this was required.
The answer to my question is yes. RSA 189.75 talks exclusively and solely about the methodology to calculate per student expenses. Very important. That's perfect. It's actually a different RSA that talks about how we talk about proficiencies. That's RSA 671.20. And it does correctly, in my opinion, require that all warrant articles highlight existing district proficiencies and is silent on any additional information or context. So I'm curious, how do we as members of the public get to provide input on specific wording of the warrant article? Is this a place to do that?
The wording is dictated to us directly from the Department of Revenue. I mean, they have a template when you go into the website that you have to use this exact word. And it's a new
But that's
law.
not what the law says.
According to the new law from this year, this is exactly how we have to put it.
I disagree based on the language of the bills. So again, you're mixing RSA 189.75, which says you must calculate per student cost with a very specific methodology, which you have correctly done.
We did, yeah.
And then RSA 189.76 also dictates separately, you must include the existing proficiency, which is done here. And that's all. But this is, I believe the way that the budget committee was talking about this before said, this is the exact language that was dictated to you. And there is nothing in the statute that specifically says you need to word things like this. So to me, again, back to the context perspective, this is a misleading warrant article language, which can influence results, right? That happens unintentionally, I'm sure. And what we should instead do is very clearly differentiate RSA 189.75 versus RSA 671.2. And then we also have flexibility as a town, right? That's one of the great things about New Hampshire. Municipalities and districts have the ability to do things that they think is right. I think it is very useful and important, in addition to the Sanborn district's proficiency numbers, to also include the state average proficiency numbers via the same calculations in the same exact category to provide our voters an accurate comparison to how our district is doing to the state averages. And that, to me, as a Kingston resident, would be incredibly useful context as I understand how my district is improving or not to make a good decision here. And we do very clearly in the statutes have that flexibility. And I'm a little disappointed that it's been positioned that we don't have that flexibility here, because we do. So I would encourage whoever writes the final warrant article to take those things into consideration. And I think we'll get a better outcome. That's it. Thank you for your time and all your work here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Damn, look at that. Slides in.
Hi, Tim Driscoll, Kingston. I just had a couple of questions. So the contingency fund, if it's not used, it gets returned to the taxpayers. Are there any other unused funds that get returned?
Can you ask that question again, please?
So the contingency fund gets returned if it's not used.
Mhm.
Are there any other unused funds that get returned to the town?
Yes, any appropriations that were not used plus surplus revenues is the unassigned fund balance gets returned to the towns.
So that was kind of my question. One of the other meetings I went to, there were multiple unfilled positions, within the schools. And so any of those unfilled positions, the funds for those come back to the town?
Well, it would be appropriations that we didn't use. So essentially, yes, if we didn't fill the positions and the money is still in the budget, so that we just return the money back that we didn't use.
Okay. The other thing was on so my understanding is there's a $2 million bond on the high school.
The bond on the high school is paid off.
It is paid off. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Dan, just a clarification that RSA is 40:13. Find that, okay. I was looking at going, that's not right. I looked it up.
Ian McGregor, Newton. I'll take them in order too. Actually, this is going to be easy because you hit like points I listed. So the first one that I had made notes on was 6. The same thing. Just check that RSA number because not knowing the RSA is in this, just looked it up. When I read it, I went, that's not direct to what's supposed to be written here, the way it was explained.
I think that I did look it up as well, and I'm not meaning to disagree, but the way I guess I am disagreeing, but the way I read this is as calculated in accordance with RSA 189.75, which is, it's the first line of that is part 1, cost per pupil refers to the cost per pupil. It defines how to calculate it. That's what I'm
I
saying.
agree. I think where the confusion is, when the slide was described, it was described that that's the RSA that says why we have to write the article this way,
Okay.
which is not the RSA that says why we have to write the article this way.
Yes, the RSA here is how we calculate that number.
Yes.
There's a different RSA, and we have it. I know right where it is in my office.
Yeah.
The laws that are requiring us to put this specific language in there.
Right.
And
Yeah. It was just when this was put up, that's the RSA. It tells us why we have to write it this way.
that is not 189.75 is not the RSA that tells us how to write this.
Right.
That is telling us how we calculated it.
Right.
And I'm not going to say 100%.
Yeah.
But it's the law that governs some of these changes that we've come in noticing the public on some of these things. One of them talks about like a poster sized piece of paper we have to make, and it literally says it has to be 18 by 24 inches. So it's very specific about how we do it, but we'll check.
It'll be a fun deliberative when we'll get them on.
Maybe, yes. Well, at least, the good thing about this is we can anticipate, we're taking notes about things we can clarify that.
7 was the next one I had. Due to my job, I can't make a lot of the meetings, but I love to watch them on YouTube. Plus, my wife hates it when I lay in bed, watch the YouTube meetings and laugh. Because can you just go to bed while you're watching these meetings? So a lot of negativity and all this. Oh, we're doing such a horrible job. This slide actually says we're doing a phenomenal job, and says that, wow, look at the default is 5%. So if looks like the administration, the school board, the budget committee did a great job building the proposed budget, because that's only a 1.2% increase where the default's an automatic 5% increase. So it seemed like, wow, that was a great deal. And then I guess technically it is out of order. But the same thing when I took slide 14 to the other gentleman's point that he said, when you look at the inflation slide that was put up there, wow, not only are we doing a great job this year keeping our increases to an absolute minimum, but we've been doing it since 2019, and we've kept it 10% below inflation. Because that's literally what you get out of reading this slide that says the inflation changes from our budget are only 15%, but yet the inflation realistically has gone up 24%. So I guess real congratulations are in order. It's a great job. Yeah. All right, so just back on in order 10. I like that there's some graphs, but I'm also like a graph PowerPoint geek thing, so I like it. My question about this one particular for enrollment trends was, did this follow or did you refer to the historical data from the contracts that the school administration has done, or the school board or our district? We'd hire the outside consultants to do projections. So this has projections through it. So did we follow that same trend? Because I know last time we went with the same company because they were only off by, I think it was reported like 3 students. They were such a great job. So I didn't know if we followed that projection. And I guess I could expand the question even further to say, did the last round of projections go well?
Yeah, I can explain where this comes from. So I took the enrollment data going back to 2015 and looked at a variety of trends that we're seeing in what percentage of 3rd graders become 4th graders.
Yep.
And that's a cohort difference. So the class of, I think I figured out the other day that the 4th graders this year are the class of 33, as scary as that is. And that class of 33, we anticipate to be something like, and I have it somewhere buried in here, 98% of the previous year's class. That's what we run. Some of them go up, some of them go down. That was a 4-year or 5-year trend that I looked at to make those cohort changes going down. The high school is obviously a little trickier because of the Fremont situation where the kids are cycling out of our school. And so I've looked at those and looked basically a cohort model type of thing, where basically what you do is you take the previous year's, this year's 9th grade, and just turn them into 10th graders and make the assumption, because we don't have accurate historical data for what percentage of our 9th graders are going to become 10th graders. So these numbers reflect that, and they were based on Department of Ed numbers and then projecting out in the future. It's very, very tricky to do that.
That was actually my question. How did these numbers, did you refer to that? Because we used the same company twice. We paid for that out of our tax dollars. So
I will be honest, I'm not familiar with that study. So I do know.
That's big, because I think the last one was only 4 years. Did we just hit the end? But we might have just hit 5 years from when that study was done, because it was a 10-year projection.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean,
yeah. I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, look that up. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd be very curious to see that. We did.
I've only been here since 2007, and I'm sure someone who's been here a lot longer than that is going to call you out on it when you throw up a slide on this and be like, wait a second, I remember
Is it NESDEC or NIAS?
Thank you. Oh, no.
Yeah, NESDEC.
Gotta write it down.
What I was trying to get to is that we did, shortly after we put all this out there, I did receive this year's NESDEC predictions.
Yeah.
That were pretty close. They're a little more optimistic than we are, to be honest, in the elementary level, but they completely failed to account for Fremont. They didn't reach out to anybody, to my knowledge, to ask about any other changes in our district structurally and so forth. They just sent us their projection numbers for the year. They're pretty close. But actually, like I said, they at the elementary level were more optimistic than I was.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
But if anybody out there knows where that plan is, but I can look for it. Phyllis probably knows. She knows where everything is. Probably.
11. I think it's next. Boom. Again, like in charts, like in graphs, my copy's unfortunately in black and white.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. No, it's all right. But again, I'm just OCD, so now's the time to point the stuff out. At the very bottom, we have ELA district over math state, and then we have ELA state, and then we have science district underneath, and then math district, and then science. Can we put them together and so they're easy to read for people? Because especially if it's just this, people aren't going to see. But it actually tells a 75% good story, right? Because 2 out of 3 are above state average. Isn't that where we want our kids to be? So I think that's a good thing. We should just make it a little clearer as to which lines go together. You know what I'm saying? Which ones are the state ones and which ones are ours for the specific categories.
I spent a good hour messing around with this chart, and
make the budget committee guys do it.
They
have all this time.
I'm peeking out the side of my glasses at Shane, who apparently I believe loves Excel. So I think he and I will mess around with it.
Good point. Good point. Good point.
Yeah, I know, I noticed that those chart on the bottom didn't make any sense, but man, I could not get the move. I couldn't get the bar on the left to say 60% to save my life and not mess up the whole graph. So what I did really want to do is drop in the number percentage proficiencies. I wanted to make sure those were super clear. So I did know how to do that.
Yeah, there you go. Again, so far everything that I've seen here says we're on the right track. But the 20, slide 20, again, this is nice. I should just sit back and wait till the end. Maybe somebody else speak up on all mine. I just wanted to comment that standard accounting, we're looking at 5 to 15%, right, in contingencies, reserve funds, the total based on our budget. So if we're running a $40 million budget, we should be somewhere between 5 to 15% of that budget in reserve accounts, in the ability to, compensate for problems, issues that come up. So I don't know if it talks to caps or whatever, but that's just standard accounting practices that I've been through. So, okay, that's it. We're good. Thank you.
Do round 2.
Go for it.
Thank you, Cheryl Gannon. Yeah, this operating budget, Article 3, is just really weird.
We don't like it either.
Having those proficiencies in there, I don't know what they have to do with the budget. I mean, it's like plopped in there. Doesn't explain what this has to do with the operating budget. There's no money associated with it. So I'm not sure, I understand you're not the right people I should be talking to. I guess somebody up in Concord decided that this should be in part of the language.
What happened?
So I would agree. So this is the minimum required language. Can we put additional language in there that would help explain it?
Yes, we can.
I would vote
I
for
have a
that.
question on my list right here.
Yeah. And this is a process question. So when I asked about the staff decreases, which it said was considered in creating the budget, and the superintendent said that this is going to be discussed. It hasn't been decided yet what positions might be cut or what the dollar amount might be, or estimated dollar amount. So my process question is, if this is the budget that's being proposed tonight and that's going to impact the budget, is that budget number going to change when you make those decisions? It's not.
No, because the budget is, in reality, what's passed is what's in this article. It's an amount. The budget committee determines through whatever process they choose, and they were very analytical about it, to come up with a particular number that they believe is a reasonable amount. I don't know if reasonable is the right word, that we can operate the district on. Based on that current amount, which could change at the deliberative session, we have begun the preliminary planning for how we would handle that. But ultimately, the budget that's passed is what's called a bottom line budget. So if it's $41,028,910, it is the purview legally of the school board in conjunction with the superintendent of schools to determine how that money is to be spent. Now, we do have legal requirements in there, contracts and things like that we have to pay for. But so those changes will be discussed. The changes that we're looking at will be discussed with the board. And once again, because there are individuals and human beings who,
Yeah, I'm not,
all that.
not my concern at all.
Okay, great. So
Thinking-
that's kind of how it works, yeah.
But the budget committee deliberated on your recommendations, and now you're saying you're going to make a change in the recommendations of what the
No changes will be made on the bottom line. The bottom line is the 41 million. We just have to determine what we're going to do to take out of our budget to get to that 41 million.
So your budget was above that. This-
The originally proposed budget that I presented on November 5th to the Budget Committee
Oh, okay.
was higher than that, but did include just short of $1 million in staffing adjustments. The overall budget number was, I believe, $640,000 under default. And as you pointed out earlier tonight, the district has not seen a differential such as that in the last 5 years. The average entry default and the operating budgets, not just what was proposed, the operating budgets over the last 5 years was, I believe, somewhere in the neighborhood of $21,000 or $22,000. So we looked at the administrative level, our team, the principals, all the way down to individual teachers, looking at what art supplies they might need, looked at what they would like to have, and we looked at that. We looked at the needs of the district and so forth that we felt were reasonable at the district, and came up with a number that was ultimately $640,000 under, because we recognized that enrollments are going down. And that was a responsible budget. We felt the Budget Committee made some additional cuts, which is their right, of course. And so that's where we ended up with that number. If I've answered your question, I think I have.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have 2 quick things. One, I did read that RSA. You guys definitely, not you guys, the school board will definitely be adjusting the default if there's positions eliminated in the operating proposed, because it says proposed. So it's not last year's, it's this year's budget that the default's based on. So if the proposed budget has position cuts in there, then the default has to reflect that. I thought I was right. I went back and read it. It is right, but I would change the slide to the right RSA if we're going to show this at deliberative. The other thing is in this one, actually, the student cost per student number, did you take that off the DOE or did you calculate that yourself?
We got it directly from the Department of Ed,
Okay, that was my only question. Thank you.
which was from the DOE 25.
Okay, yeah.
James House by Kingston. We're getting to the end, so I just wanted to actually express some gratitude. This whole process is actually a little bit confusing to me because there is this perspective that the school district has not been spending dollars as responsibly as perhaps others would like to do. And I understand that. But when I look at the data, this is a success story. We have seen improvements in student performance. At the same time, we have seen consistent reductions in actual operating budgets when compared to our overall inflation rates. And that is a really important perspective based on facts, not opinions, that must be clearly articulated to Kingston and Newton residents during the deliberative session. Up until today, I don't feel like that story has been told. And I think it's really important that it gets out there to the public. This is a good budget. The proposed budget is actually, you are doing more with less. There's context required to tell that story, and context is difficult and complicated, and nuance is difficult and complicated, but it's also accurate. And I am imploring the Budget Committee and the district and other members of our community who are not here to be able to tell that story during our deliberative session. And if we do that well, we will actually be able to make good decisions for the today and tomorrow in our district. So I actually congratulate you. It's really impressive. I would love to be able to have this budget in my own company, which I'm also responsible for. And our expenses are going up much more than 1.43%. exclusively due to things outside of our control, like a 20% healthcare premium, which is outside of the control of you guys. So this is success. Tell that story, please. Right?
So if there are no more further comments tonight, I hope you'll join us on February 4th for the deliberative as well.
Madam Chair,
But tonight,
I'll move that we recess this public hearing to Thursday, January 22nd at 7 p.m. here in the Sanborn Regional High School Library to address only the two special ed warrant articles not presented tonight.
can I get a second?
I second that.
So hopefully we'll have those warrant articles next week. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, great. So we'll continue this hearing next week in the auditorium at 7 o'clock on the 22nd.
The library.
I believe it's in this room because the library has another
Oh,
meeting
okay.
going on, so it'll be in the auditorium.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. Move to adjourn. All in favor? Thank you so much.